Hello and welcome to Growing Tech Fast, the condensed Org3D podcast, where we talk about growing tech startups with those who have grown them. Today, I'm joined by Raul Popa, the founder and CEO of Typing DNA, a cybersecurity startup in the continuous endpoint authentication space. Raul, it's a pleasure to have you on today. I've been really excited about this one. How are you doing?
Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Yeah, doing very well, thank you. Doing very well. Appreciate you putting the time aside. I know you're busy with the growth over there. So, for the benefit of our listeners, perhaps we should kick off just with a brief kind of intro from your side, Raul, on who you are, what your mission is, and with the work you're doing at the moment.
Well, I'm a self-taught coder and turned sociologist and psychologist, and then moved back into the engineering and tech world. Been part of a few high growth startups, co-founded two other companies. Then there's the company that we'll probably talk a little bit more about today. Started back in Romania in East Europe. And moved and also with previous startups in US. And now I live in Brooklyn, New York, where we have headquarters for this new company called Typing DNA. So I went different directions, walked different walks of life. Usually I've been in management positions. I did everything from engineering, data science, product, and some communication and marketing as well. I mean, I oversaw that, not necessarily did myself. I'm not the best at that, just communications and all that. And now I'm a CEO, so basically I'm the highest chief in command, if you want. I still have investors above me, so it's not like I don't respond to anyone. I have board and I have investors and shareholders. So eventually, I think it's like a loop. At any position you are, you think you're gonna be on top of the pyramid in a way, but it's other people above you as well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, fantastic. Well, I'd love to start, I guess, with the early parts of your career then, Raul. You mentioned there you came from the kind of software engineering background originally, which I always think is a really interesting groundwork for someone who then moves into a CEO where they're responsible for everything. I know that you began kind of as an engineer, you then became a product manager at Jumpai, and then went to co-found your sort of first startup venture, which was Mythics. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience of kind of formulating your first company?
It was not only me. We were five co-founders, and I was more like on the product side in that perspective. So I wasn't the main founder and all that. I could say I was one of the visionary founders in a way, but this is the first and only startup that I joined that actually failed. So Mythics was a type of application, more or less like Zoom or like Google Meet or Microsoft Teams. So at that point there was this Adobe Breeze, similar product that Adobe tried to make. So we created this business, meeting place online with remote video and audio and ability to share screen, to share cursor, even so I would be able to show something on your screen and so forth, and surveys and all sorts of interesting things that we embedded all in this live streaming sort of meeting platform. You could also record and with chapters. So for example, you could record like a I don't know, teaching class, something like that, and then somebody else could play that, in their time at different speeds and all that. Very, very cool technology. But when we launched that, the vision was definitely the world is going that way. Internet is now making all this possible. We don't need to move to actually fly from one place to another. And this was 2006. And we really believed in this. And we had an investor who put a lot of money into it. And then that investor, after we worked on this for a bit, I think a little bit more than a year, and we already had working product and all that, we're able to demo this to a number of companies. And this investor was also like I think a CEO at a large company, and he also looked at this and asked other people to look at it and see if they would want to buy something like that. They were like, no, we don't need something. We don't need internet meeting software. If you really want to do like a business meeting, you have to be in person. So the decision was made. The product is a failure, the idea is a failure, it will never work and all that. And we all know it actually worked. And there's Zoom is doing incredibly well even now in the downturn of the market. And yeah, it's a story that I remember with nostalgia, but also I understand now that whenever sometimes I may have a good vision about where a technology might be or how it may be used in the future, that future may be far away from where for where it needs to be in order for it to make a company successful.
Yeah, it makes sense. A good lesson. I guess you missed the crucial final step of that product development, which was to start a global pandemic. and then there would have been more of a need, I guess, for that kind of technology.
Absolutely right. Nobody thought the pandemic actually will enable work from home like the way it is right now.
Yeah.
And it's really crazy. So I come from a small city in Romania called Oradea. It's like the 8th city or so in Romania. Nobody would, build a large business out of that city. So you need to move out to a different city. And now all this is possible. All this is possible. And it's very cool because you can work from the mountainside, you can work from countryside, from smaller cities. You can have like people who really don't like to live in like bigger cities who can work for your company. And I think that's really great. And the ways things will change in the future with people working remotely, definitely a good progress for the society, generally speaking, for the world. And definitely online meeting is one of the things that needed to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And so you mentioned there Romania. I know that's kind of where you began your career, and you started some companies there before then moving to the US a few years ago to found your current company. What are some of the key differences between starting up in Eastern Europe versus the US, for example?
I think what is really cool about starting online businesses in East Europe is that from the very beginning you need to go global. There's no way you're gonna sell online technology, whatever software components I used to do, and other things like that to like Romanian entities. I mean, maybe some, but most of them, from the very beginning you need to think global. Where if you start in US or UK or some other Western countries, you kind of think small first and then global after. I mean, you kind of think local first. So our mentality needed to be global first, and that's really cool. So we saw the internet as the liberation vehicle, if you want, the way to actually be able to use whatever we know to to work in this global economy and provide technology and all that. I think there's like you live in UK, so in UK you're gonna see a lot of people from Romania that actually had moved there physically, and most of these guys are doing physical work or of some sort. Because if you're doing intellectual work, it doesn't you don't really need to be physically in a certain different country. And I don't think anyone really likes to be very far from home, from the place they were born, unless the place is really unsafe or uninhabitable or anything like that. But Romania is really, really nice. So it's a place where you want to live if you can. It's just economically less, capable than UK and US and the Western world, generally speaking. But if you're in this field of building, online or SaaS tools, or you know, generally speaking, computer science based technology, you're gonna do fine. You're gonna do really well, regardless where you live. And we saw this internet as a way to, provide for ourselves, but also for the world, do something that is more meaningful than just, being involved in a local company or something like that. So yeah, that's I think it's different. I see in US people, still think, local first. They for them it's very, very important to be appealing to the local culture first, and so the for that one. I think what's different in US is the company started in Silicon Valley because Silicon Valley was small. You needed to think global. So that's why I think Silicon Valley worked really, really well. Also because of this global thinking that needed to be embedded into, their entire thinking.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense.
I'm not in New York City. I live in New York City. New York City can live by its own. That they don't care about everywhere.
You can walk everywhere you need to get to New York City. And how about what led then to the creation of Typing DNA? I know that you spent some time in other markets, in advertising technology, for example. So at what point did the seed of the idea, I guess, plant in your mind to come up with an idea like this and actually embark on that journey?
So I've been involved in a number of technologies for web and advertising, and for small businesses to create their own advertising and place ads online easily, things like that. I've been involved in native advertising platform, all things, advertisement, online advertising. And at some point I realized I don't really like that domain. It's not that you can do that with some sort of passion because you're passionate about what you do, the tools and the technologies that you're providing. There are all sorts of interesting things, that happen behind the scenes, what ads should be shown to whom at what time, and all that. Very, very clever things in order to drive, clicks and all that. And, how the banner should look like, I got into, artificial intelligence and try to apply this to, banner advertising in general, try to optimize things using machine learning, try to do user behavior analysis to understand how users behave in different platforms so that, whether they look like a premium customers before they actually, start, pay for anything and all that, what kind of products they want to pay and so forth. So by doing this research in user behavior analysis, I stumbled upon other types of behavior analysis, such one of the type is the way you type. And I was really impressed with the idea that our typing is unique, and the way you type can be used as a biometric to recognize you in different ways. And because I spent a lot of time doing user experience and product management, I kind of fell in love with the idea of being able to authenticate people with very with a very transparent layer, like the way you type certain thing. And at that point, like, privacy was not really big. I didn't think that much about privacy, but in the meanwhile, privacy also become a very, very important topic. So and in that respect, even other biometrics like face and fingerprint and other biometrics are being more and more scrutinized, and people want to share less and less information. So, for example, the way you type a certain thing is not similar to how you type a different thing. So, for example, our technology can look at only how you type 4 words, and it only can authenticate you if you type the exact same 4 words. You do have we call it any-text technology, but you need to type a little more than 4 words in order to be able to use that, and it's not that accurate. So the cool thing is actually we limit the amount of how sensitive we are with private data, with client data and all that. We're also
Mm,
being very transparent about what we do and how we use the data. And I think there's also a cool thing. So first is the transparency. The fact you don't need to do a lot of things actively. You just type in your email, your password, 4 words, very simple things like that. That doesn't disrupt your whatever you're doing on the computer. You don't have to reach out for your phone to put in an OTP code, one-time password, things like that. So much better user experience, and at the same time more respect for user privacy. And I think those two components really make sense. And for example, we have a technology that runs on the device, 100% on the device. We don't even, send any data to the cloud. In order to be, actually, we have two technologies like that. Typing Focus, which detects your moods based on how you type, so you can, look at your day and understand how your mood was through the day, just based on type. So like an activity tracker, but for keyboard instead for sports and other things you do. So for when you work, and I think that's very important. You can track your how happy, how energized you are, how stressed you are during different tasks you took while doing your work. And the other one is this active log technology that runs on the computer, protects from any unauthorized use, and everything is done on the device. No data sent into the cloud and all that. So biometrics are really, really everything. This is not even a biometric. We call it typing biometrics. It's not a biometric, but we treat it as a biometric. So
right.
we're very careful what we do with the data, how we encrypt it, how we store it, how we use it. We don't send it to the cloud if it's not necessary and all that. So very, very, important how we do all this. And I think a lot of companies don't realize, all the depth of why this technology can be a winner. So I think I am being a visionary a little bit about typing DNA, and I think in the future it will be used in a lot of places in different ways, or this type of technology, not necessarily our company's technology. But so far we're still struggling. We have a lot of clients, we're selling, we're moving forward, we're growing, but it's not yet the mainstream authentication method that you're using. It's still a long way to be there. Yeah, so multiple things in one. Started doing user behavior analysis, and that's how and artificial intelligence applied to understanding user behavior. I found this domain of typing biometrics, got involved into that. And I think it's very cool. It has a lot of potential especially because of user experience and privacy. The fact we're treating privacy as a really important thing, and customers like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the thing that really stood out to me about your solution actually, is because other authentication products, they might use things like looking at your browser settings and your cookie history in part and parcel with that authentication process, and people see that as actually an encroachment on their own privacy, which kind of defeats the whole point of that kind of solution. So you're right, it's a transparent and very almost impersonal to the actual person behind the keyboard, but it does the exact same, it has the same value.
The biggest problem with cookies, and here's the thing: very few people understand why the cookie thing is important.
Yeah.
So the thing is, one application is not, technically able to look into other companies' cookies. That's correct. So if application A or site A cannot look into application B or site B cookies, they are restricted to only look at their own cookies. But the thing is, you can delegate your cookie to be seen, you can allow other companies to see your cookie. And in advertising world, what they do is they place your cookie in their own website for a little bit of money, right? So, different websites will place your cookie as an advertising platform, or Facebook or whatever. So those advertising, platforms, or sometimes it's just a cookie that just collects data and then they sell the data. That is what's going on behind the scenes. So that's the biggest problem with cookies. And when you allow those cookies to be collected, you basically allow the data to be sold and used especially for advertising. Sometimes can be used for other things like that. People don't understand 100% where's the problem with that. me coming from advertising, I really dislike the idea of cookies being able, the ability to include cookies from other platforms. And that's why when you like Google Analytics would be every website has a Google Analytics cookie. That cookie will collect a lot of data and will be shared with Google eventually. So Google can control that data for free and use it for advertising, for other things. And at the beginning, you just want to track your visitors. So I think they have a limited form, but still, there's different. If you look on a website, you'll find 30 different cookies, and each of them, maybe half of them will be harmless, but other, half of them, they sell that. They used to sell that to advertisers, to large plots like Facebook, Google, who would need the data to profile you better. It's I hate it. I don't like it. And I think there must be an end to these cookies. Yeah,
So what you'd hate sitting behind me while I'm at work, because every website I go on that asks me about my cookie settings, I just click accept all and ignore every single time. I'm one of those people, so I'll be one of the ones owned by the cyborgs in future.
I don't know what the solution to that is, but definitely is a big problem and very, very annoying. I agree with you.
Yeah, definitely. And something else I wanted to ask you about actually is I know you've had success early on with building some really strong partnerships with companies like Microsoft, for example. And something I'm seeing a lot in the market now is companies shifting their sales, especially early stage companies, shifting from their traditional direct sale into more partner and channel type sales. How important are partnerships to you in this early to mid stage of growth, and what is needed to sort of start a conversation with a company like Microsoft around that?
I mean, for example, Typing DNA is a Microsoft ISV, independent software vendor. I think it's the acronym. Basically, you can use Typing DNA in certain cloud products for Microsoft for authentication. And the implementation was done by a team from Microsoft that liked the idea, and then it's basically there and anyone can use it. There's other partnerships where it's a more legal part, a more back and forth part, where you decide on how that partnership will go. It's not necessarily an integration, a technical partnership, as much as is a channel partnership. So they're gonna resell you, they're gonna make some money out of you, or vice versa, or a combination of integration and channel partnerships. There's definitely a different level of partnerships that you can strike with different vendors. I think it's very, very hard. Once you partner with a company, they usually don't at that point clients that need your product. So you need to bring clients to the platform instead of selling them directly. You need to say, hey, you know what, why don't you buy our technology from our partner? They may already be a client of the partner. So that's what usually happens with the providers like Microsoft or Amazon or Google Cloud or others like that. So when you want to work with these big companies, you usually need to bring them clients too. And a lot of startups think it's the other way around. Thinks, oh, I'm partner now with this big company, so clients will just come to me directly. It's the same with if you list products on Apple Store or Amazon or everywhere, and you have a sort of channel like YouTube, or you have a blog or something like that, and you could sell that product directly without giving 30% to Apple Store if it's a application, or if it's a like physical product to give it to like Amazon or something like that. But in the same time, you want the product to rank high, so you need some people to buy and to rank your product in that platform in order for that platform to surface that item for other clients of theirs. So even if it's like a B2C kind of product, you still want to enable your partner first, to send clients to your partners, instead of saying, hey, you want to buy something from me, come directly on our website. You do the exact opposite. So listing your technology on that platform, whatever it is, or whatever you're selling, and then secondly empower that or enable that partner to actually sell by sending clients to them from any channel you have. That's really important, I think, in any type of partnership like this. So this combination, I think, is very, and not only for us, for anyone in almost any domain, B2C, B2B. That's a very important thing. Both of these things are very important.
Yeah, definitely. It's a somewhat kind of symbiotic type relationship, I suppose, in order for you both to gain from that agreement. And something that we touched on earlier is how technology has helped to enable remote working, and then we also touched on how COVID has kind of shifted that whole paradigm, really, of the working environment and what employees are expected of, and how employers can actually hire people. So how more specifically, in your opinion, has COVID changed the landscape of cybersecurity and the risks involved with the change in working environment that we've seen?
Very, very good question. I think from a cybersecurity point of view, what we've seen, and there's many independent studies on this and researches. So breaches are more prevalent in 2020 than 2021, even more 2022, beginning of 2022. Incredibly record high in data breaches, theft, things like that happen like a lot in last 3 years. And you can only correlate this with one thing, with people working remotely. And I mean, you can correlate with other things, but after the pandemic, people started working from everywhere, and that means so many things. It's not just one thing. So when you take a computer from a company premise and you move it into your home, you need to make sure that a lot of things are secured there. So you need to make sure your network is secure. So every piece of network, from your computer to the company servers or whatever you're using, sometimes you may need to use VPNs. You may need to, like, protocol is respected, and all your employees are respecting protocol. They're not sharing the computers with other people. If they share the computer with other people, they can do a lot of harm, even without them knowing. So children doing homework on company computer they may click accidentally on some link that would encrypt everything, like those ransomware attacks, or they can delete things without their will. They can send a message or an email to somebody without their will. They can be victims of phishing or different other attacks where you accidentally submit credentials or click on a link and install something on the device, or temporarily give some permission on the device, things like that. And that's very when you have thousands of people or hundreds of people that work remotely, in a company, everything changes, because not everybody is that aware from a security point of view of what they need to do and what the potential breaches that can happen. And because of that, people don't care that much. And even if they know the protocol and all that, they do mistakes like leaving their computer open, connecting on non-secure Wi-Fi, things like that. There's many things. It's just I don't want to get into all the details. What we're doing with Typing DNA is actually, once the pandemic hit and once the COVID hit and people started working remotely, we had a project that we started about 6 years ago about continuous authentication. And we had a page where we discussed and explained that. We had a prototype back then and already started working deeply on this technology. And we didn't see a lot of interest, like with the Mythics platform that I told you earlier. We didn't see a lot of interest. So we kind of like left it, as a side project. We said maybe in the future. Right now, people don't seem to care about, continuously monitoring their devices and make sure it's not somebody else using them. And, after the pandemic hit, companies started, to find this page on Google search engines, came to us and asked for the technology. We were already working on it. Now we raised a bigger round, so we designed more money for development, and we were already working on this, but we realized there's actually a need in the market that shifted right towards our direction after the pandemic hit, and people working from home means more security on those devices, like including technologies like active lock to protect the computer from any unauthorized use. So spouse or roommates or kids or anyone who would access the computer while left unattended. Those people, once they start typing, once they start using the computer, we look at how they type on the device itself and then lock the device if it's somebody else, and alert the company administration, so they would be able to see somebody else is using the computer, which is not good. So yeah, we're provided this type of technology, and it's based on this typing biometrics thing. Very, very interesting, very exciting when we show this to people at different events. Some of them have difficulty believing this actually works as it does. We show the technology to them, they type a few words and the technology locks on them, and they're like, wow, this is really crazy. Now you type, and they make me type, or whoever the computer is, and yes, it works perfectly. And it's like, how does it work? And yeah, well, everybody has a unique typing style, and that's what we're using.
And would you be able to lock my girlfriend out of my laptop before she starts buying things on my Amazon account?
Absolutely. That's one of the, yeah. And you can always say, look, the company doesn't allow me to share the computer. I would certainly, let you, use the computer for whatever you need, but company policy. And if they find out, I will be, I'll be in trouble. I don't want to do that. Yeah.
Amazing. No, it is an amazing technology. I think a future is not too far away where passwords just don't exist anymore, which seems crazy, something out of sci-fi. But yeah, I think you guys are on the forefront of that kind of movement. So we're just about running out of time here, Raul. I think it's been a fantastic conversation so far. I guess one final question, maybe speak for 30 seconds on what the future holds for typing DNA. Where do you want to get to in the next year or two with the company?
Well, it's very important also what happens with the war in Ukraine. Also very important what happens with inflation rates and the market and all that. All startups want to raise huge rounds at very small dilution rate. This is not the best time to raise to do fundraising, and if you don't do fundraising, you cannot grow at the pace you want. It's a very difficult difficult time for startups in general, not just us, or not actually for any kind of company. Even to start a startup, very, very difficult. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to focus on what works, trying to focus on where we see more engagement, try to get more money from clients if possible, and less from investors. But obviously a fundraising may and under good terms makes sense, because we could grow the team and all efforts that we have at this point. Yeah, so future doesn't look good in general for business. That's the thing at this point. Short future. Long future looks better. So I believe most companies, regardless of size, will limit their costs and their investments as much as possible in order to show good numbers on the financial sheets. That's the truth, and we're trying to be better than that, but it's really hard. It's something that was not around. Last year was a really, really good year. 2021 was one of the best years in business in last 20-30 years, probably the best one. 2021 really good year. 2022 not the best.
The other shoe had to drop at some point, I suppose, but hopefully we'll be getting out of it and being able to put that behind us pretty shortly. And I'm really excited to see the growth that you see, Raul. I think you've got a great product, a great culture, and I think can't wait to see that. So I know you're a busy man. I'll let you go. I really, really appreciate the time today. It was a pleasure to speak with you and learn a bit about, yeah, the forefront of this technology, really. So, yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Likewise, thank you so much.
Cheers. So for those of you listening at home, tune in next time to Growing Tech Fast.